Hello, welcome back to the studio and our beginner watercolor tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be going through what I recommend for a beginner watercolor palette. I'm kind of going to talk about two palettes. I kind of decided to follow some Windsor and Newton kits that I was seeing online, and some that I felt like kind of followed a diverse range of colors that I would be drawn to. And just kind of what's my instinct, but then also, like if my entire painting stash disappeared, what are the first colors I would go to in order to start painting? I'm also going to talk about the first colors, the very first colors I would go out and buy in addition to these kits, and really what I think should be included in these kits. And I'm going to lay them out on my palette. I will be using this ceramic palette. Spoiler, I've already been kind of testing it around because I pre-filmed setting up the palette, and I do like it. I don't think that it is superior to my large plastic palette, as I talked about in the supply video that I filmed earlier. I'll have that link down below. But I do like it. If my opinion changes, I will update you guys in a video, and I will update the description down below. But I do like it. I think it's a nice size. It'll be fun. I will also be setting up the palette for you, or with you. Now, if you are beginning watercolor and you're going to be following along with these tutorials, I recommend setting it up the same way that I will be setting it up. However, the most important thing is that you set your palettes up consistently. It takes kind of some of the extra brain work and the extra thinking out of painting, so that I'm not thinking, oh, where is that color, while I'm trying to think about the technique that I want to use. So if you already have some experience with painting, or you've already got a palette, just stick with that. You'll get to know your palette. If I were to follow a tutorial and somebody said alizarin crimson, I would know exactly where that is on my palette because I'm keeping it consistent. So don't get too hung up on where I'm putting things, or like if you have yours differently. Do what you like. If you are, however, beginning and you have a palette like this and you're just setting it up, it might be helpful, since you are if you're going to follow some of my tutorials, to set your palette up the way that I do, so that, again, you don't have to think about it. If you see me reaching for a color, you can reach for the same color. All right, now if my voice sounds a little extra mannish today, it's because I'm recovering from a cold, but hopefully it's more soothing than annoying. But here we go. So a lot of kits have cadmium yellow, and then cadmium red, the pale hue, then alizarin crimson. So we have ultramarine blue, which does come in a smaller tube. I just don't have one. And then we have Veridin hue, which is a cool tone green, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt umber, where'd she go? Ivory black, and white, which we'll just put over here because that's where we have room. So this is a great mix of colors. There's a couple issues that I have with it personally. I do like to have white and black in my kits, and there's a couple reasons for that. I really like having black. I like that it's kind of a shortcut if I want to darken something. I don't think that you need it. So if you do not have it, or you're trying to kind of find ways to go without it, skip the black. So lamp black or ivory black is good. If you're ever looking at blacks and you think lamp black, turn the light out on that one. It's not good. It separates from the paint. It drove me nuts. I hated it. I actually would argue that you don't need burnt sienna and burnt umber, because mixing brown is really easy. I don't think that you need this to get a good rich brown. I don't think it's bad to have. I would get burnt umber before I got burnt sienna, to be perfectly honest. No offense to my sister, whose name is Sienna. But if you're kind of looking at maybe getting rid of some colors, saving on some money, don't purchase these two. Yellow ochre, I think, is a must. Ultramarine is a must. Alizarin crimson is a must. I could go without the cadmium red, but again, it's a nice one. Cadmium yellow is a good one, but I actually would prefer lemon yellow. So I feel like this is really easy to warm up and get to this like goldeny tone with a little bit of yellow ochre, or maybe a little bit of red in there. So if I were to choose between the two, I would go with lemon yellow hue as opposed to cadmium yellow hue. That is a personal preference. If I can open up my
kit really quickly and show you. So this is my plastic kit. This is lemon yellow, this is cadmium yellow. They're both fine, but it's easy to go from this to that, and I don't think it's as easy to go from this to this. If you were to go without one of these, I would skip cadmium yellow personally. And then Veridin Hue might be my least favorite green ever. So we are going to include it in this kit, this series, because I know a lot of you get it and I want to show you how to use it. But if you are just starting off, you're buying each individual color yourself, buy these, pick up a sap green, pick up a white, and if you're kind of like, you know, you want a little bit more variety in there, I think a cerulean blue is a great addition. It has a very different feel. It's very bright in a different way than ultramarine is. So especially because blue is so versatile, I would grab that instead of, let's kind of actually put these in some sort of color order. I would grab these. So if you are making your own kit, you're buying colors individually and you're like, okay, what do I start with? What would Katrina recommend? Here she is. I would recommend getting a sap green. And if you get a kit where, you know, like you have all of these colors, the first color I would purchase is sap green. It is the most versatile green. Bob Ross, this is his green. My husband and I, when we were talking about, like, before we did any research, we were like, okay, what were the colors you would recommend? This was the first color both of us said. So get this color first. I'm going to have a whole video later in this series about using sap green and making it versatile. I will also show you how to use this one. So if this is in your kit and you don't have sap green, do not panic. But if you're, you know, you're building your own kit, or you're like, you know what, how do I expand from this? Sap green is the first one. The second one, it would be lemon yellow. These are the colors that I use the most in my own kit, even still. Maybe not the cerulean. I have used it in the past a lot. It's just not my current color palette. So this is kind of where I would start if I'm like exploring and I'm wanting to purchase things individually and I want to make sure I have a well-rounded palette. Start here. But for the sake of this tutorial series, I do want to stick with the colors that were included. Now I will be adding in lemon yellow and sap green, but not until we get a little bit more advanced. So I'm going to kind of hold these onto the side, and we will be adding those in a later video when we get, again, a little bit more advanced. Same thing with the cerulean. So I'm going to start with this little kit here. So we've got the cadmium yellow, cadmium red, alizarin, ultramarine, Veridin, where is she? Burnt sienna, burnt umber. Nope, yellow ochre goes in here. Boop. See, this just seems like a lot of neutrals when neutral is so easy to create. So I have a feeling that as we're going through these tutorials, you're going to look at these and be like, why did we don't even really use these? And that's because you can use these so much. Now I do have these in tubes, in part because they came with a kit that was given to me by a friend, but I also, you know, like, I mean, this is the ivory black that I purchased myself. I think I purchased one of these. I purchased at least one burnt umber myself because I think it's good to have, and it's a great way to take a shortcut. I don't think you need it though in the starter kit is, I guess, where I'm going. So this is where we're going to start. I'm going to put these out here. I'm going to save some room in my palette for these guys. And I'm going to show you kind of how I think through my palette and where I'm going to place things. So let's pause for a second, and I'm going to rearrange these and then talk you through how I'm laying. Okay, now again, there isn't really a wrong way to set this up. It's just kind of based on your preference. I'll be mostly using this palette like this, just because that's my preference. So, since I won't be including these two right away, just trying to figure out how to separate it out in this palette so that it will work where it's like warm tones and cool tones. These neutrals lean very warm, so I want them with my warmer tones. These are kind of annoying. I find like that's difficult to use. So just kind of trying to figure out, planning ahead, because I know I'm going to be adding these two in here, probably right here. So this is where, and if I were to split the palette in half, even though this is a cool yellow, it is warmer than like blue. So this is kind of the warm side of my palette, and this is the cooler tone side of my palette. Warm colors are like red, orange, and yellow. Cool colors are green, blue, and like purples. But there are warm and cool ones of each. So if you look at these, obviously one has more yellow in it, one has more blue in it. So this would be the cooler tone, and this would be the warmer tone green. So this is how I'm planning to set up my palette for our tutorials. We have burnt umber, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, cadmium red, cadmium yellow hue, yellow ochre. I will be skipping lemon yellow and sap green for a little while. We have Veridin hue, ultramarine, and then I'll be skipping cerulean for a while. And then I have ivory black and Chinese white separated out down here. I just like to keep those separate. I don't even know necessarily why, maybe just to keep them clean, but they'll be a little bit separate so that there isn't like a whole lot of intermixing with them. But that's how I'm going to be setting up my palette. If you have purchased a kit, it'll probably look something like this. If you have more blues, different blues, that could go like in here, and that would work as well.
All right, I hope that description was helpful for you. If there is something that you think that I left out, or if there's a color that you would immediately purchase if you lost all of your watercolors, go ahead and leave that in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, I'm gonna keep rambling about color because you know I love it so much, but we're gonna dive into painting next. We'll talk about color theory and a little bit more about why I have the palette set up the way that I do, as well as just kind of getting some color training under our belt. We're not going to go too heavy. There's a lot of color tutorials here on YouTube, but I do want us to have a little bit of practice before we start getting into actual techniques. So we need to have a couple more tools in our belt, if you will, before we start attacking the actual painting process. But I am really excited about that. If there's something that you would love to see in this beginner watercolor tutorial series, go ahead and leave that in the comment section down below, and I will add that to my list. All right, I am so excited to continue this journey with you. I hope that you are as well. And until next time, happy painting. Why are you mowing the lawn? That doesn't make any sense.